Hello, Sanbonani, Dumelang, Molweni, and happy Women's Month. Quintika Zawasenza, Africa. I'm talking about the centers of the home. Welcome to this special edition of Expressions, where we will be celebrating women and their splendor. Well, Ndumlo Ukalosa, Ununkanyezi Kalubisi, all right?
Kapilo njani mdase?
Tiapila Kod.
Koska kuda nunkanyezi mnacho Mzansi Africa, and of course I am your host, Oliema Fomisa. Now it's exactly 5 p.m. and we are coming to you live and direct from our Auckland Parker studios in Johannesburg. Happy Women's Month to you, Kolosa, and of course a happy Women's Month to our young women watching from every single corner yalapha Mzansi Africa. Now, every year in August, our country marks a Women's Month where we pay tribute to the more than 20,000 women who marched to the Union buildings on the 9th of August in 1956. Of course, this was in protest against the extension of past laws to women. Now, this week as Expressions, we would like to focus our attention really to women from the queer community and shine the spotlight on what it truly means to be queer and a woman apake Mzansi Africa. But before we get into that particular discussion, here's an insert compiled by our very own producer, Tsegofaso Makgodego.
My name is Jade Madingwane. I work for Forum for the Empowerment of Women, a Black lesbian feminist organization. The organization is really around advancing the rights of Black LGBTQ persons in different communities. So today we are at the Gala Queer Archive. So the Gala Queer Archive archives stories of queer people. And so we are here today because we are also a partner with Gala, and they have archived some of our work over the 20 years that FEW has existed.
My name is Zandile Mabaso, and I am from Homo Souls LGBTI based in Duduza. We work under Rainbow Activists Alliance. That's actually under, that was founded by FEW. Most big NGOs and most companies that can actually assist when it comes to issues of hate crime, discrimination, and so forth are all in the big cities. So Rainbow Activists Alliance was actually formed to bring this closer to home. So there's small to medium groups, rural townships, where we gather, where we offer support, assistance to young and old LGBTI people. We assist people who have experienced discrimination, people who have experienced hate crimes, people who have been victims of abuse and so forth within our communities.
My name is Nonkululeko Freedom Majali, actually known as Nox, and I am from Val LGBTI. FEW is one of our hosts. We've been doing a lot of work together. They have been helping us through planning Val Pride. They have helped us do code monitoring and basically with few trainings and workshops.
I am Jade. I am a Black queer woman that exists in South Africa.
My name is Zandile Mabaso. I'm a Black lesbian woman living in South Africa, and I am proud.
I am Nonkululeko Freedom Majali, known as Nox. I am a Black lesbian woman, and I am proud.
Most certainly indeed. Queer women are also women. Now, of course, to help me unpack this discussion a little bit further, I have the honor and pleasure of being joined by the Forum for Empowerment of Women's Programs Coordinator Jade Madingwane. And of course, we do also have Lihlohonolo Machaba, the first openly transgender contestant to compete for the Miss South Africa title back in 2021. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
I think before we even get deep into the conversation, I wouldn't be doing justice if I were not to ask, what are your pronouns?
I go by the pronouns of she and her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then for you?
My pronouns are she and her.
All right. I mean, Jade, right on that, I think let me start with you. Why do you think it's important for, I guess, in a typical normal society, we shouldn't even be asking that question, what are your pronouns or preferred pronouns, but why do you think it's important for people to know that?
I think pronouns are very important so that we don't misgender people, because we live in a world where there is a binary. And so for some people, they don't identify with male and female. They identify as non-binary. And so pronouns are important in that regard.
We seldom, we obviously do celebrate Women's Month, but we seldom do celebrate queer community, particularly the ones in the queer community that identify as women, she and her. So why do you think it's also important to be inclusive in terms of our celebration of Women's Month to also the queer community?
I think the moment we celebrate queer women, we get to show the diversity that actually exists within women. So if we were to give them a platform to be celebrated, it's going to give a proper representation of what women come as. So we shouldn't only focus on cisgender women, but also trans women. And yeah, I think for now, I'll just keep it brief like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jade, let's take it back for a second here. So you have an NPO, the forum that I just mentioned for the empowerment of women's programs. So basically, tell me all about that program.
So the organization is not my organization, but Forum for the Empowerment of Women is a Black lesbian feminist organization that works to advance the rights of Black LGBTQ persons, but we also work to advocate and advance education and action.
I mean, what are some of the nuts and bolts of the empowerment organization? Perhaps maybe the particular incidents where you had to advocate for the rights of the queer community at large?
So we know that the Constitution protects LGBTI persons, you know, but when it comes to LGBTQ persons on the ground, we know that the Constitution doesn't serve us at all, because Black LGBTQ persons face a high level of violence, a high level of discrimination, as well as misrepresentation within mainstream media, or in general just in the world. So the work that we do, we work to advance those rights. We work to ensure that Black queer women have access to education, but we also counter the criminal justice system, because we know that the criminal justice system always favors the perpetrator instead of LGBTQ persons.
All right. Now, Lihlohonolo, I did say in my introduction that you're the first openly transgender contestant to compete for Miss South Africa. You told me it was top 30 semi-finalist, right?
Yeah.
Back in 2021.
And 2022.
2022?
Yeah, both 2021 and 2022.
Okay. Oh, the slash, I forgot that slash. There's a slash in between. Excuse the pun, slash. So, I mean, with that, I'm interested to find out from you, because prior to you competing for Miss South Africa, it was previously exclusive of the queer community. So perhaps now that it's inclusive of the queer community, how do you sort of, your analysis of that shift and what it will do for the queer community at large?
I think looking at the Miss South Africa organization, what it's doing in South Africa is going to give a proper representation of the queer community, because now we get to visualize ourselves being on a bigger platform as queer women. Now, if for my sake, I've never dreamt of being Miss South Africa, but being given that opportunity, it made me realize that I can dream. I can be able to represent the community that has been marginalized for a very long time. And with the platform, my voice gets to amplify about the issues we often face as a Black trans woman. So I'm grateful for the opportunity for being given a voice to advocate for coexistence. So yeah.
I like the fact that you just alluded to you being the vessel of the queer community at large. Perhaps what are some of the challenges that you have encountered personally in your lived experience, which you would like to share with us?
First and foremost, I was a model after graduating, and the most difficult thing for me was being able to disclose my identity to my close friends, because I felt as if I were to disclose my identity, I was going to be typecasted as a model. And with that, I didn't get to experience the freedom of living. As much as they say that we have freedom of existence in South Africa, but as a Black trans woman, I was never, till today, it's not easy to be myself in spaces. I get to somehow dilute my existence so that I can be able to blend in. So with the experience that I've had growing up, I've developed a thick skin, which I doubt a person has to live through, is thick skin. The world, they say it's inclusive, but For me, I feel like it's not that exclusive because I still get to dilute my existence in order to make other people feel comfortable.
And most certainly, there's still a long way to go, and
Yeah.
we should, as a community at large, do better when it comes to that regard. We'll continue with this important conversation. I do want to also get to you, Jade, and talk really about the interventions that we sort of need. But for now, let's take a quick commercial ad break. This is Expressions. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You are still tuning in to the biggest youth show in the land. Expressions is the name of the show. And of course, today we are putting a spotlight on the challenges that are faced by queer women in South Africa. In studio, I am joined by a counseling psychologist and mediator, Jenna Beyer. Jenna, welcome to Expressions. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I am fantastic. You know, before we proceed with the conversation, you know, what are your preferred pronouns?
She, her. Those are my pronouns, yes.
She, her.
Yes, so I actually was never he, him. The world was seeing that. I presented that, but inside I was always she and her, yes.
So you were a she trapped in a male's body?
100%, yes. It was 30 years of hiding, 30 years of anguish and anxiety, and to the point of 2014 when I collapsed in a shopping centre. And that was the decision where I had to finally decide, right, it's now or never. So that was the turning point, yes. So decades of hiding, and eventually a decision had to be made, yeah.
So that was a yellow moment, you know, you only live once. I mean,
yeah.
Jenna, you also a psychologist. I mean, you get to counsel a transgender woman. Can you take me through some of the challenges that they go through?
So numerous things. The common symptoms or things I pick up is people pleasing and notable anxiety habits like excessive nail biting, anxiety, worrying all the time. I'll tell you why the people-pleasing happens. When you're born into a world that says you're unwelcome or not enough or less than, if you then don't speak up, what can end up happening is you internalize that, and then you end up overcompensating by trying to win people over in the hopes of companionship. So that became a way of life for me, and I see it in my clients, where it's this people-pleasing. Will they think I'm good enough? So a lot of my psychological work is self-esteem work, is not pathologizing them, because the common reaction can be there's something wrong with me. I'm weird, I'm wrong and bad, and then thinking there's something wrong with you becomes a way of life. So that's a lot of where the psychological work comes in. And there's a lot of times where I do get triggered, I'll admit that, so that's why I have to have my own therapy as well, because I can be triggered by that. And a lot of that is what I went through. So that's typical examples of stuff that I've done. And then I've done a lot of parent-adolescent mediation, where I've helped learners come out to their parents, either as gay or transgender. And it's incredibly liberating, because not only am I doing the work of a psychologist, but this is the work of democracy, because this is their right to be who they want to be. We can't just say we're a democracy, but now they're in hiding. We have to live it. We have to do it. And those are democratic moments for me. So that is some of the work that I do, yeah.
You're doing really incredible work, giving them the right to be who they are, exercising their democracy. And we are, of course, celebrating Women's Month. And transgender women, some of them, they feel excluded, especially when it comes to some events that are held this month. Do you feel enough is being done? And I mean, are we celebrating as a society? Are we celebrating transgender women enough?
So to answer your question, not only do they feel excluded, they are excluded. I'll tell you what my concern is. My concern is window dressing. So whether it's in the media or whether it's in companies, this is what I'll say, and I'll speak about myself here. So I'm a psychologist. Pre-speaking in the media and at companies, I would speak on numerous mental health topics. But when I came out, I was asked to only speak on transgender-related matters. Now, this is groundbreaking, I won't doubt that. But I have two questions. If it's a one-off, then it looks like window dressing. And two, how committed is the organization to diversity? In other words, I'm talking about the psychological impact of being on display to satisfy a disingenuous diversity agenda. Commitment means, every historically marginalized group wants a persistent commitment to their cause, because being an ally is a verb, not a noun.
Jenna, thank you so much. Unfortunately, you have to cut this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
We could go on forever, Carlos.
Right, in Mugeli Expressions, you are tuning into your number one youth show. What do you have to say about this discussion? Make sure that you do interact with us on our social media pages. Right about now, let's take a quick ad break. We continue with the discussion. You're watching Expressions.
Welcome back to Expressions right on SABC 1, and thanks very much for staying with us. And of course, namhlanje on the show, we are putting a spotlight, or rather shining a spotlight on queer matters, and I'm still joined by Jade Madingwane and also Litlohonolo Machaba. I mean, as we near the wrap of this particular conversation, I think it's an intriguing conversation that we ought to have as Mzansi Afrika Phela, a much needed conversation. But let me throw this one to you, Jade. So as particularly as queer people, right? How do we curb the urge to want to conform to societal expectations?
I mean, I think it's really not about conforming to societal expectations. I really think that the communities that we exist in need to be taught around sexual orientation and gender identity because, one, we do not want to be tolerated as a community. We want to be respected the very same way we respect other human beings that exist in South Africa. So it's really not about us kind of conforming to the black and white that is the world, and the in-between is not seen as us existing.
And for you, so what do you think, according to your perspective, ordinary citizens of South Africa should do to try and accommodate the queer community?
I think respect, like what Jade mentioned, respect each other. Let's normalize diversity that exists within this world, because I firmly believe that every single person is uniquely created for a specific purpose. So when we get to respect, we get to show the diversity and allow each person to utilize whatever gift they've been given to fulfill the purpose that they are created for. Yeah.
I mean, the guest that, I beg your pardon, the guest that Kolosa had, the psychologist on the other side of the stage, really mentioned something that is very intriguing. She was talking about, wanting to be in a democratic country and I don't know how I can put it, but perhaps expressing ourselves as people, balapha eMzansi Afrika, based on the Constitution, because it allows that to happen. So, for instance, what do you think are still some of the barriers that exist that hinder us or hinder the queer community as well in terms of fully expressing themselves in this democratic dispensation?
I really think that the Constitution is not taught enough to the communities that we exist in, or in communities that we exist in, rather, because there is absolutely no way that people are going to hate because we exist as queer bodies in this world or in these communities. A lot of our parents say that being queer is an African, and so religion, culture plays a huge role in how our parents are thinking in terms of Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible, but also around the binary within our traditions. So I really think that education around sexual orientation and gender identity, but also particularly around Section 2.1 that talks to freedom of expression and freedom of association. We need to learn about the Constitution. The Constitution needs to be dispersed in communities because people do not know that we've got rights as LGBTI persons.
And I concur with that most certainly. So for you, Litlohonolo, in closing, there's other transgender women that are watching this show right now, and they are still in the closet, as the term is called. What's your word of advice to them, and perhaps a word of encouragement? Because, like I said, it's a democratic country.
Yeah. I'd say be yourself. As much as it sounds so cliche, but trust me, be yourself. And I firmly believe through that you'll be aligned to what you were created for initially. Because I firmly believe that you are uniquely created. As much as you might feel that the society is setting you apart, but it's setting you apart to show how uniquely created you are and how powerful you are.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us on the show, and that was really a very fruitful one. But I was hoping that you'd bring me that rainbow band or even a cloth or something. But we shall, we'll discuss that after the show. Well, there you have it, Mbugelo Expressions. That was, of course, Lihlohonolo Machaba and Jade Madingwane talking all things queer right here as we celebrate Women's Month, Kolo.
All right, and to be yourself in such a world is the greatest accomplishment. Right to Mbugelo Expressions, Sikshia Nononka Eti Izinto Twana. Enjoy!
Se